For those of you who followed my Instagram story, I made it. Got back here before the Tesco man, which is a massive win. Means my girlfriend won't shout at me as well. So if you are wondering why I do food shopping online, there is an article on propanefitness.com. If you go to the search in the corner, a little magnifying glass, and type in automate your diet, Yusef has written a fantastic article on how you can just sort of grease the slope to making the good decisions easy and the bad decisions hard when it comes to managing your diet. Hey Keelan, how you doing? I wish I could do hearty eyes back, but I can't. Yeah, so one of the most common objections that our clients have is that, I don't have time to go food shopping, or I go food shopping after work, I'm starving, I make all these bad decisions. If you just automate it and you just do the same shop every week, which means that you know that you've got all your bases covered, you've got all the food that you need, it arrives at a time that is convenient for you. Like, yes, it costs a bit more, like you've got to pay a delivery charge, but that's all those decisions taken care of. You never have to think about it again. It's pretty cool. What I want to talk about today, this is a shot of propane, by the way. You might notice that if you're watching, that looking a bit more tanned than normal. I've just got back from Cyprus, and what I want to talk about today in this shot of propane is the idea that, which you might have heard before, which is that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or the 5 people that you associate with the most. And I don't actually agree with that statement, to be totally honest, but I want to talk about what it's getting at, and how that is applicable to you and to what you do and to your progress. So the reason that I was in Cyprus was for a wedding, and that marks I think it's like 3 in 2 weeks or 3 in 3 weeks weddings that I've been to. And before that, I had never been to a wedding. So it's been a very wedding intense couple of weeks for me. And I'm just like at that age now where a lot of my friends and like relatives and people associated with me are getting married, I suppose, or like it's a theme. They're getting engaged and getting married. So lots of stag do's, lots of weddings. And Yusef and I combined have been, I think he's been to some island in near Scotland. I've been to Dublin, Cyprus, Manchester, like what feels like all over the place for these things. And obviously they're loads of fun. Lots of calorie excess and poor sleep, but still loads of fun. And it's weird how it just becomes normal. Like, go back 6 months, and it was like a really rare thing. Like, going to a wedding would be a really novel experience, but now it's just become part of my weeks and part of my months, and it's just like I'm expecting the next wedding invitation. So if you're getting married, send me and Yusef an invite and we'll come. But it's the point I'm making is that it's strange how, like, what is normal in your social circle, what is normal in like the people that you associate with, becomes your normal as well, even if it wasn't normal previously. And something that we see a lot, Yusef and I like comment on between us a lot in the fitness world, is the attitude towards work. So this is something that is like a bit of a tangent, but also related. So Yusef and I used to work in like a totally different industry. So I used to be an accountant. Yusef used to work in an investment bank. Now Yusef's a medical student. So our like attitudes to work and like the hours you work and how hard things are and stuff like that definitely comes from that culture. And you move into the fitness industry, and there's very much like a Gary Vaynerchuk. If you haven't heard of him, have a look. Gary Vaynerchuk and like grinding and hustling, and lots of people posting photos of themselves on their laptop with a cup of coffee saying they've had a really productive morning. And it's just weird how, like, to me, that's it. Like, to sort of brag about doing work is really odd. Or like to feel like you have to tell everyone that you've done some work this morning and it's been really productive is really odd, just because the norm in the finance world is that, like, that goes without saying. People are doing like 60-hour work weeks as a minimum, but in an industry where that's not the norm, suddenly it's really different, and it's a big clash. So that was a big change that Yusef and I noticed when we moved industries. Again, you go from having this total norm of like everyone's doing loads of work, that changes, and suddenly the hours you work change, and everything changes about the way that you operate in that area of your life. And so how is this applicable to you, or how is this applicable to fitness, I suppose? Well, it's simply that I think a lot of people operate on norms in any area of their life, and they associate to the nearest comparison, whether that's like their family, their friends, people in their gym, whatever. And that's what you always rate yourself against, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. There's this idea that happiness or contentment isn't driven by what you have personally, but it's what you have personally related to or in comparison to the nearest similar comparison, whether that's what's friend, relative, whatever. And so you've actually got to be really careful about what those averages and what those norms are, because if you aren't paying attention to it and you think you're winning because your average, what you compare yourself to is down here, you end up just kind of selling yourself short. So how do you do something about that? Like the reason I don't agree with the advice of like you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with is like, what are you supposed to do about that? Like if your friends and family aren't particularly driven people, if you want to be really successful in something but you don't know anyone who is really successful in that thing, you can't just like change your friends or like ask for different parents or a different family. It doesn't work. The benefit of the online connected world is that you can always find someone or a group of people who you can associate with that are slightly above you. And so get involved in like groups online, coaching groups, Facebook groups, follow people on Instagram that you admire that are above you, listen to podcasts, read books, read articles from people who are pushing the standards of the things you're trying to improve, because that then becomes your new norm. And so that's really the tip for today. Like that's what I've taken from moving into the fitness industry over the past couple of years and noticing that like attitudes to work in different industries are so different, but that it very quickly becomes your norm wherever you are. And then also that when all your friends are getting married, that just becomes what you expect to happen. So check what your average is and check what your norms are, and be careful of what you're comparing yourself to, that it isn't dragging you down and instead it's pulling you up. It's everything.